Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, so you can join our tech family. If it is informative to you, please like our video, share it with your friends so they can get help with these video, and don't forget to press all notification bell icon so you get regular update and don't miss any single video.
So let's take a look at best practices, because typically this is where we have the most control as security professionals. And when I say best practices, I actually mean, for the love of Pete, please. Let's first start with configuration. Well, when it comes to wireless, do yourself a favor and change the default SSID. In fact, this might be a great opportunity to practice something that I always talk about, and that is misdirection. For example, if I have a D-Link router, I know the default SSID is called D-Link. I'll switch it to, I don't know, Linksys or Tsunami, a different manufacturer, because when an attacker is war driving through my neighborhood or through a business environment and he sees D-Link, he'll throw D-Link attacks or vulnerabilities at that device, which obviously won't work. Now, if you don't change the default username and password, you deserve to be hacked. And yet so many people don't do this. I actually think it should be a standard feature when you do a setup of a new access point that it should tell you to change the default username and password. I was recently shocked with my new Netgear wireless access point. I can change the password, but I can't change the username. Kind of discouraged there. Also, disable SSID broadcasting. Again, this isn't going to necessarily stop an attacker, but that's not your job, because that job is impossible. Your job is to slow them down. They have to be looking for hidden SSIDs. Also, disable remote login and wireless administration to the device. The last thing you want is for the attacker to be able to gain access to the device via wirelessly. Let's make it a little bit harder for them. Make it so that you have to be on the physical wired network to manage this device. Enable MAC filtering. Again, this is very similar to disabling the SSID broadcasting. It's not necessarily going to stop them, but it is going to slow them down. And in fact, if I slow him down enough, I'm going to hopefully discourage him. And do yourself a favor, and I know this is a pain in the cahootskis. My family hates it, but change the passphrase often. Or if you start to see some suspicious activity on the network or on that device in its log files, definitely change it. I know that means you have to go through and change all the passphrases on all your devices, but let's think about that one for a second. Is that really a pain, or is recovering from an attack a bigger pain? Okay, so now that we're done with configuration best practices, let's talk about how do we handle authentication best practices. Remember what I said about if you don't change the default username and password, you deserve to be hacked? Well, that applies also to if you're still using web. Now, granted, if that's your only choice, because I don't know, the device is so old, it's better than nothing. But if the device is that old, I honestly think it's time to upgrade. Make sure that also you update drivers on all the Wi-Fi devices. Again, I go back to this aspect that we're all so much aware of updating our applications, especially like on our mobile devices, or we update our OSs. Famous Patch Tuesday, right, for Microsoft. But I always ask people, when was the last time you updated the firmware or the drivers on the Wi-Fi devices? This should be done at a minimum of at least once a year. I would preferably see this on a task list for yourself to be done every quarter. Now, we've talked also about creating a centralized authentication server. Remember our Radius server? And again, that's going to require some best practices as far as locking it down. And here's one you may not have thought of, but guess what? If you're not using it, turn it off, please. Just because you have the ability to be wireless doesn't mean you have to have it turned on. Now, because wireless is one of the attack vectors that an attacker can come in on, the other one obviously being the physical network, we need to make sure that we secure the physical side of the Wi-Fi devices. And that can take several different approaches. For example, access points, I try to hide them up inside of ceilings, especially if I have a drop ceiling. I don't want people to see that I have Wi-Fi access points and where they're located. Yeah, believe it or not, in pen testing, I'll actually go through and case the joint, which means I walk around and look to see if I can see any access points. That tells me right away if there's any Wi-Fi available. Next time you're in a retail store, look around. I'm really shocked, especially the big warehouse stores like Sam's Club, Costco's, or Walmart's. You can see those bad boys everywhere. So now that we've done authentication, let's take a look at some best practices for the SSID settings. Now, we've mentioned already of changing the SSID or the default SSID and also hiding it. This is also known as SSID cloaking. I once read an article out on the internet that had 3 reasons why hiding your wireless SID was a bad idea. And one of the 3 options was hiding your wireless SID tempts bad guys. Guess what? you're already tempting them the fact that you have a wireless network. Now, we can also argue whether it's a waste of time because, as we've seen, we can detect those, but that does require a different level of attacker. Also, when you name your SSID, oh, please, top line, for the love of Pete, don't use anything identifiable like the company name, the address, your last name. At that point, you're just making things almost too easy. As far as the layout, you should also make sure that you place a firewall or a packet filter between the access point and the corporate network. That's almost a durr moment, right? Make sure that you check all the settings after updating the firmware on your devices. We talked previously about making sure that we update the devices themselves, or at least the firmware. Well, after you update them, all of your settings are typically saved, but new settings that the firmware offers are set for new defaults, so you need to review that information. I'm also a big fan of backing up your configurations, so in case you give things up, you can always restore them. We also talked about limiting signal strengths. Speaking of removing antennas, which we talked about earlier, back in the old days, back when wireless was brand new, we actually had a D-Link. There was a famous D-Link router, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but if you removed the antenna, you actually got a stronger signal. And it's because the antenna they included was actually a governor or a limitation. It was stifling the signal. Kind of funny. And I think that was back when 802.11b was the big bad boy on campus. And let's think about some other encryption technologies that we can use with wireless. Oh, for example, IPsec for wireless, or set up VPN tunnels between wireless users and access points. Anything, again, to slow our attacker down. Now, I do need to probably give you a caveat here, and that is every time we add additional protections to our systems, we do end up affecting performance, as well as creating some complexity. And as you all know from my previous courses, anytime we hear the word complexity, we have to associate with it the possibility of additional security holes being made. So it takes a very vigilant IT security professional to keep up on all of this. But hey, that's what you're here for, right?
We hope you enjoyed the video and found value in the content. We value your feedback. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to post them in the comments section or contact us directly via our social platforms. Thanks for watching.